Coming round faster than Caleb Ewan with a point to prove, it's another edition of Ask GC Anything, where you get to do exactly that, and that's ask questions, not win World Tour bunch sprints. Now, first up, we have this question from Kieran Burgess in the comments section. I'm a fairly novice cyclist. I live in Brighton in the UK and commute to work along the seafront. What is the best way to beat the oncoming wind? Are aerodynamics the key? Hashtag talkback. Well, thanks very much for getting in touch, Kieran, and we certainly do sympathise. Headwinds absolutely suck, unless of course you're a little bit of a sadist, because let's face it, nobody jumps on their bike with the sole purpose of flogging themselves giddy into a headwind. And in fact, we'll do our utmost to avoid them at all costs. But as certain as night turns into day, from time to time, quite frequently in fact, we are going to face a headwind. So the best thing to do is use a few different sorts of techniques, because we know that you can't actually stop the wind, but you can go a little bit quicker, become more efficient, and more importantly, you can stop the wind from breaking your will and morale by watching this video.
We've said many times here on GCN that the biggest thing holding you back on flat roads is your body position. So you want to get a flat back, get your elbows and your knees tucked in, drop your head, and you'll find that you can go much faster for exactly the same power output.
Next up, we have this question from Andres Omana in the comment section, who asks, hello GCN. Hello, I'm 20 years of age, and last year I got decently fit by training an average of 18 hours a week, which is a fair bit. Sadly, I can't ride my bike now for more than 5 hours a week. Is there any way I can keep fit? And if not, how can I deal with the bad feeling of being dropped by the group that I used to lead? Thanks in advance, love your videos. Well, thanks Andres for getting in touch with us. But firstly, I have to say to you, don't give up. It can be done. And I'm testament to that because I used to train on limited hours around a full-time job for the vast majority of my riding career. So what you need to do is basically train harder and smarter to make every single one of those training hours count. So you need to basically instill a sense of discipline, order, get yourself into a routine, and it should work. And hopefully, if you watch this video, it should set you off in the right direction. Just going back a little bit, I'll just blow the dust out of it.
It's a 90s relic right there.
There we go. Well, a typical week would look something like this. So on a Monday, essentially, normally would be a recovery day for me. Tuesday would be 1 hour hard, for example, with three-minute hill reps. Time now for the rapid fire round. First up is this from Matt something or other, great name by the way. Dan, are you cutting your hair or does it just grow slowly? Now I was hanging out with Dan over the last couple of days and he actually told me that he likes his new hairstyle and does shave it quite regularly, so it looks like we're going to be stuck with that new hairdo for a couple of months yet. Antoine Huget asks, if you had a chain that's rusted a bit, would letting it soak a couple of days in vinegar or coke be a good solution? Hashtag talkback. I think the simple answer to that is no. Next up we have this from Graham Crowther. When using an indoor trainer, how do you suggest tackling snot rockets? Great question, Graham. I spend a lot of time on the indoor trainer, do have issues with snot rockets, but just have a big towel and a mat. So a big towel and a mat used as a combination should sort out the snot rockets. Sam Murray asks, if you had no hills where you lived, why would you ever go somewhere where there are hills? That is quite an interesting question because hills are pretty brutal. Not everybody likes climbing hills, and some people actually try and actively avoid hills. But I guess the answer to that question is because you want to ride on hills, really, Sam. Penultimately, Brian Stokes has asked, ask GC Anything, what about Haribo as training recovery fuel? Now, to answer this question, if you search on the internet for footage at the end of Brussels-Kern just the other day, the race that Peter Sagan won, I think your answer is just there. He basically hoovered up half a packet as given to him by his soigneur. And I was at the Tinkoff Saxo training camp a couple of years ago with Alberto Contador et al. Peter Sagan was there. They just came in off a 3.5, 4 hour pretty intense training ride, and the first thing they had was a little plastic cup of Haribo. There's your answer. Finally, this from Bruno Zub. It's quite a timely question, in fact. What are you guys going to do when the channel hits 1 million subscribers? It's getting very close. Tell us about it, Bruno. We know it's getting close, possibly in the next couple of months. But I'm going to throw the question back out to you. What do you guys think we should do for our 1,000,000th subscriber celebration? Leave your comments down below. Okay, rapid fire is done and dusted. Next up, we have this question from somebody called Drafedius in the comment section. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that name right. I'm 74 kilograms in weight and thinking of switching to 25mm tubeless tyres on my road bike. So what sort of pressures should I be running? Hashtag talkback. Well, Drafidis, you have actually come to the right person, because I'm around 74 kilograms in weight at the moment, and my preferred tyre width of choice is 25mm tyres. So generally speaking, in dry conditions, I'll run about 100 PSI, and in wet conditions, about 85 to 90 PSI. Although I'm running tyres with inner tubes, I have actually used tubeless tyres and ran exactly the same pressure. Now for me, that sort of tyre pressure on that sort of width offers a comfortable ride, plenty of grip on the corners, and it's just not too harsh either. And rolling resistance is pretty good. So for me, it's a do-it-all tyre. Now, if you are new to the sport, the whole issue of how much pressure to put in your tyres can leave many, many people scratching their head, because there's so many different things to consider. There's the type of road surface that you're riding on, there's the weather conditions at the time, there's the type of tyre and the width of tyre that you're using. Then also you've got to factor in your body weight as well, because that is quite important. Now, to answer all of these questions and to give you a little bit of guidance on this very thorny subject, watch this video where Simon talks you through.
Well, now we're safe. That is a very good place to start, but it's certainly not the only thing to think about. We also need to factor in the width of our tyres and also our body weight as well, because narrower tyres need higher pressures than wider ones, and heavier riders need higher pressures than lighter ones.
Finally, on this week's Ask GCN, we have this question from Music Stuffson. Great name. Hashtag talkback. I heard a few weeks ago someone mentioned that it was good for road riders to do some other sports so they don't develop osteoporosis from doing non-impact exercise. I ride my mountain bike about 50% of the time and road bike the other. Is mountain biking with jumps and pressing into corners for grip and more explosive manoeuvres classed as impact or non-impact? And should I look at maybe getting back into running on the side to help maintain some bone density? As you can say, that's a very, very interesting question, which led me to the deep, dark depths of the internet to try and find some answers for you. But I must stress, they are very general. Now, it is a great question, and I think it's worth mentioning that most pro riders in the modern era do other sports in the winter. Many will jump on a different sort of bike, so a mountain bike or a cross bike, and many will head to the gym, depending on the sort of rider they are. But I think pretty much every pro rider now will go to the gym to do some core work, which they'll then bring through to the rest of the season. And another trend that we've seen emerging over the last few years is that riders, pro riders in particular, going hiking and doing lots of walking. But what we can't say is that they do that specifically in relation to preventing the onset of osteoporosis. It is a really complicated subject with lots of impact factors, but again, from what I've read, a good rule of thumb is to throw in some intensity to your riding, and like you mentioned, riding on a mountain bike or a cross bike with the different dynamics involved can help replicate some sort of impact, although there is a slight difference, of course. Now, all of this may help, and I stress may help, combat the issue of low bone density. Although what I can stress is that it's a subject that I advise you to read up on a little, because it is remarkably interesting. Now, a rider that does things completely differently again is Richie Port. Now check out his approach to training, utterly unique.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, in the season, I use it more as a recovery. You know, after an easy ride or whatever, you know, I'll go to the pool and do a little bit more on, you know, on the kickboard or something like that. So.
Thanks again for all of your questions. We do read as many as we can, so do keep them coming using the hashtag talkback in the comment section down below and on social media as well. Now, if you haven't already subscribed to GCN, you can do so by clicking on the globe. Please tell your mates, and we'll be one more subscriber click away from 1 million, which is going to be absolutely amazing. Now, for some more cycling tips, specifically how to draft, how about clicking just down here? And for my exploration into crank length in the pro peloton, click just down here. Now it's time for some fake tea drinking.